So not only did my boy Jalen pull a Greg Jennings,
my leg broke. I don't know how I'm running right now, though.
And break his leg this summer, his PC died. So not only is he stuck in the house, he can't do anything all summer, but the one thing that could give him, endless entertainment stopped working. So he asked me if I could take a look at it, hopefully get it back up and working for him. So let's jump right in. So the first thing off the bat, this PC is caked in dust. So let's take it outside. I got the air blower. Not only do I not want to get it all over me when I'm working on it, but it just needs to be clean so bad. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably one of the dustier PCs that I've worked with in a long time. These little rechargeable air dusters do a much better job than canned air, I think. Plus you don't have to buy them, you can just recharge these with USB-C, super handy. A large amount of dust caked inside your PC like this could definitely raise temperatures, but it's not gonna cause it to not work. But something that will work is this laptop from today's sponsor. This is the HP OmniBook X Flip, a premium AI-powered laptop for students and creators who need high performance in an ultra-sleek portable package. It's powered by the AMD Ryzen AI7 NPU processor, which delivers lightning-fast performance in up to 50 TOPS of AI capability. So whether you're editing, studying, or multitasking, this machine doesn't slow down. The Flip design is perfect for anyone on the move. I use it in laptop mode when I'm getting work done, I put it in tablet mode when I'm gaming or reading, and tent mode to stream or reference content hands-free. It's built to last as well. You get up to a 3K OLED Gorilla Glass display with a super sharp and vibrant picture quality, and the backlit keyboard with large keycaps is actually really comfortable for long typing sessions. But how about the battery life? Up to 19 hours, which can easily get you through a full day of school, work, and editing without reaching for the charger. What really impressed me is the built-in AI companion. You can upload your class notes and have it generate study guides or even quiz yourself, and because it's processed locally on the device, your data stays private. And when it's time to hop on a video call, whether that's for class or even an interview, the 5-megapixel camera with Polycamera Pro keeps you looking sharp with features like background blur, auto framing, and multi-camera overlays, making it feel like a studio setup and not your unfinished basement. If you're a student or a creator who needs a smarter or more capable device, the HP OmniBook X Flip and AMD Ryzen AI is made to adapt to how you learn, work, and create. All right, she's still pretty dusty, but it is much better than when we first started. I've already gone ahead and verified that it won't power up, but let's hook it up to power and to a monitor so I can show you guys exactly what it does. It's not gonna do anything, but you guys can experience it all with me, so let's do that. All right, we verified the monitor is turned on. Let's check the power switch. Power cable seated all the way, power switch on. If we go ahead and hit the power button, nothing. If I was a betting man, I would say it's probably the power supply, but let me show you guys the actual internals of this PC. There's a couple things that I think are set up not ideally, so let's jump in and check that out. First thing I noticed, it's got a 120mm AIO, absolutely pointless. Buy like a $20 tower cooler, much better. If you're gonna go an AIO, go 240, 360, then you're gonna be getting the actual benefit of it. And then looking at the GPU here, it's mounted in the lower PCIe X16 slot. It looks like he does have a Wi-Fi card here, but this should still fit up in the topmost one. So I'm gonna switch that around and then go from there. GTX 1060, these old EVGA cards look absolutely stunning. I wish EVGA was still in the GPU game, so nice. So the GPU easily fits over the Wi-Fi card. I don't know why it was in that second PCIe X16 slot, but now we got it set up correctly. After this, it's pretty obvious the one thing we should start with, and that is swapping out the power supply. Now, the only one I have handy is this Corsair RM1000X. Fully modular, definitely overkill. Cybernetics Gold power rating and A- sound rating. I mean, at least his PC would be future-proofed a little bit in terms of power. I do have some cases. I feel like if this works, we should probably upgrade his case for free as well. Let's unplug everything and get this new power supply put in. I'm still sneezing. This is greasy. Now, I'm not certain, but this is a Thermaltake Smart 650 watt. This is probably the problem. Now, this will probably work in a pinch, but even on a budget build, I would advise on getting a decent power supply so you don't run into these issues down the road. This thing is disgusting. I'm gonna have to use like 100 puffs of my inhaler after dealing with this thing. Let's crack open our Corsair RM1000X. Almost pulled a Linus. We're not gonna need all these, so let's figure out what we actually do need. Of course, the power cable, 24 pin for the motherboard power. He does have two 2.5-inch SATA SSDs, so we're gonna need some SATA connectors. one 8-pin CPU cable, and we only need a singular 8-pin PCIe cable. Here's a good thing to note. I am gonna give him the box full of all these extra cables because if he wants to upgrade to a better GPU down the line, needs to add in additional cables. You want the cables that came with the original power supply. You don't wanna try to mix and match these cables. Absolute nightmare waiting to happen. So he'll have these just in case he ever wants to, upgrade down the line, which I'm sure he will. So much nicer using a modular power supply. That is all the cables that we're gonna need here. Let's get it installed. I gotta sneeze so bad. The new power supply is in. I've double checked 24-pin, CPU, GPU, everything looks good. Power switch on, moment of truth. Do we have anything? No. I am surprised. Now, there's a few things we gotta check. It could be the case power button, so let's check the power switch that is plugged in. Maybe the power button just doesn't work, so what you can take is a screwdriver. I put a flat bit on there, and you can jump the power pins with this, and it will bypass the case. So let's test it out. I will unplug the power button here, and jumping the pins, not working either, so that is not a good look. All right, that power supply is brand new, so there's no reason why it shouldn't work, but let's go ahead and use the multimeter and we can test the power supply just to make sure that the motherboard is actually getting power. What we gotta do is put the black into a ground wire on the actual 24-pin. Then we'll take this one and we will put it on pin number 9, and that should be 5 volts of standby power. So we'll just have the power supply turned on, not pressing the power button, and see if we have 5 volts of standby power. You can't really see on camera, but on the side of this actual model, the pin numbers are labeled. I would use a diagram if you're gonna do this on your own. So we're gonna put the ground probe into pin number 3 there, into pin number 9. All right, it's in number 9, and as you can see, we do have 5 volts, so we're good there. So there's 2 other things I wanna check when it comes to the power. I wanna put this little jumper cable on just to make sure that the power supply fan actually boots up. I know it's gonna be good. It's a brand new power supply from Corsair. And the second thing is to actually take the red probe and put it into pin 16 on the 24-pin, and that way it will show 5 volts standby. When I press the power button, it should drop down to 0 volts, showing that the motherboard got the power on signal. If it stays at 5 volts and doesn't drop to 0, either the power button's not working, which we will test by jumping it, or the motherboard is just not getting the power on signal. Not looking good. So here's our little jumper cable. We're gonna connect this to the 24-pin here, just like so. If we power it on, we should see this fan start to spin. And we can feel the air. So we know the power supply is good. I figured it would be. Jumper off, plug in the 24-pin again, place our black probe on pin number 3, and our red into number 16. And it should be showing 5 volts here. 5-pin, 16-pin, and we are seeing 5 volts. So now when I press the power button, that should jump to 0. You're not gonna be able to see me, but I'm pressing the power button right now, and nothing, still at 5 volts. I'm gonna actually unplug this and use my screwdriver to jump the pins to see if that will work. Nothing, so it's not a good look. It could mean that the motherboard is dead. I thought for sure with the power supply that was gonna be it. Not gonna be defeated though. But it is currently midnight 30, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So it's day 2, I've slept on it, and after thinking about it, I've really got, I think, 2 options. I've got all the different components outside of the case. This thing's probably going in the trash. So I figured if I'm gonna give all of his hardware one more shot at working, I'm just gonna find a 3D printable test bench and print that. That way I don't have to put all the components into his new case just for it not to work, and take everything back out and go with solution number 2. So I found this 3D print on printables, sent it over to the Bamboo A1. It's 2 components, very simple. I printed it first as a test in some cheap PLA, even though that's not what you're gonna wanna do it in. You know, anything with heat, you're gonna wanna use PETG or something like that. This will probably just warp over time, but I'll show you how it works. So this part just sits on top of the power supply. You have your GPU support bracket and 4 motherboard screws here. Motherboard will go on top. Take our motherboard screws, and then we simply screw it in. I'm gonna do one on the right side and one on the bottom left. You'll see if we leave it like this, it has no support, which is where this comes into play. Simply goes in the front there, and we throw 2 screws on the top. Let's get this thing put together, and we will give it one last test with this hardware. Before I forget, I actually do have a new CMOS battery, and I'm just gonna throw this in and swap out the old one. Probably not gonna make much of a difference, but you never know. All right, we've got it all hooked up, a little bit of rat's nest with the cables here. There's one thing I didn't think about. It doesn't have a tower cooler, and it's got this absolutely terrible 120mm AIO. I might just set that on top and just let that kind of dangle just to try to get it to run for, 5-10 seconds, jump it with the screwdriver. I think that's our only option. We've got the AIO mounted on. It's plugged in. Let's flip the switch. We're gonna jumper the pins. Let's see if anything happens. Probably not. Why would it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm almost 100% certain at this point of testing that the motherboard is the problem. So option number 2, it is. I decided to take a look at my part storage. I haven't looked at it for a while, and I found an AMD B550 motherboard. I'm not sure why I bought it. I think I got it last year just for a good deal, but the only problem is I don't have a CPU for it. So Facebook Marketplace it is. I don't live in a huge city, so used part availability is usually pretty scarce, but I hopped onto Facebook Marketplace, searched up AMD CPU, and the first thing I came across is a Ryzen 5 3600. I think he wanted like 80 or 100 bucks. I talked him down to 50. I always base my pricing off of eBay. I'll type in the product that I'm looking for, check the box that said sold, and there's a bunch of Ryzen 5 3600s sold for anywhere between $45 and $55, so I thought $50 was fair. So now we got what should be a new working B550 motherboard, a Ryzen 5 3600 with the CPU cooler so we can get rid of that 120 AIO. Then we can use that new power supply, his existing graphics card, his existing RAM, even though it's pretty slow, his 2 SSDs, and his Wi-Fi card. Now you're probably asking yourself, what's the case we're gonna upgrade him to? Let's take a look. This absolute beauty is the Musatex K2. It comes with 6 pre-installed RGB fans, plenty of cooling, easy accessible dust filters, USB-C, USB 3.2, and just a really clean design overall. Before we get all of this hardware put into the new case, I do wanna take a minute and say thank you guys for watching the videos, for watching the sponsored content. I know it's not your favorite, but it allows me to do these type of upgrades for my friends, family. I believe Musatex sent this case out about 4 or 5 months ago. I did a little short video on that. Corsair sent me a bunch of different power supplies, and it's really awesome. So all I had to really do for my boy Jalen was pick up this new CPU, 50 bucks, not that big of a deal. Let's build. All right, we're all done with the build. Let's check it out. This is an absolutely massive upgrade. I think it'll look pretty decent with the RGB fans. The other glass panel kind of gives it that full wraparound glass effect. The GTX 1060 EVGA always did a nice job with those. The RAM, not bad, but let's actually get it plugged in and see if we finally have a working PC for Jalen. Make sure you turn the power switch on, of course. Power switch and RGB. It's a great sign. Looking good like I imagined. We've got our motherboard lights there. GPU is spinning. Let's go. We might be onto a working PC. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is his 2 SSDs, one of them probably had Windows on it, obviously. It's not gonna work with this setup. We went from Intel to AMD. Let's get this hooked up to a monitor and see what happens. We might just have to do a fresh Windows install, but we're almost there. Disregard everything I said. It booted up straight into Windows. Unbelievable. Let's go. I just texted him for his password because I don't have it, but after this we can test it out and just confirm all his files and everything are there. And then I'm gonna send him a picture of the PC actually, because he has no idea that I actually upgraded it for him, so should be pretty sweet. All right, I've got in, I got his password. I just really wanted to update the GPU drivers, update Windows, get the AMD B550 chipset drivers on there, RGB software, and everything works perfectly. Forgot the peel. So that about wraps it up with my buddy Jalen's PC. I think it's had some quality upgrades. You know, you could still get an SSD. I have the rest of his power supply cables here, his old motherboard with probably a working CPU. I'll give that to him. I'll get some beauty shots of this thing for you guys. Thanks for checking out the video. We'll see you in the next one. See ya.